And so your expert witness defense is Dr. Jumis.
That is correct, Judge.
All right, can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, you can lower your hand. If you'll state your name for the record, please.
My name is Michael Thomas Jumes, Jumes.
Right. All right, so off the record for a moment, Cindy. One, everyone needs his qualifications and what is specifically those qualifications are that relates to testimony he's going to give with your client. So if we can tighten it and not make this a let's cross-examination or life history, that will make things run smoothly. All right, Cindy, we're ready. You may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Dr. Jumis, can you give us the brief version of your resume and qualifications as a psychologist, how you've been trained and how you're certified?
Sure. So I earned a bachelor's degree in psychology at UT Austin. Went to graduate school, completed a PhD, a doctoral degree in clinical psychology at the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center at Dallas. The program is accredited by the American Psychological Association, and I completed an accredited internship. I took work in my postdoctoral year at a brain injury rehabilitation center, and I completed my licensure requirements. I was licensed to practice psychology in 1997. I've been continuously licensed since that time.
Okay, now specifically to the brain injury, that's something I've asked you to give me an opinion about in the past and have you do an evaluation that potentially included some of that information, correct?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell the court your experience and in being a psychologist for people that were suffering from brain injuries?
So I trained in clinical psychology. That's a discipline that is focused on the assessment and treatment of mental illness. And so as a part of the training, there's coursework and practicum to learn about neuropsychological assessment. And in the course of my work life, I worked for about 3.5 years at a brain injury rehabilitation center. I worked under the supervision of a neuropsychologist in Dallas, and I provided largely treatment for cognitive rehabilitation for people with acquired brain injuries. That were things mostly like head injuries and strokes, sometimes for a person who may have had a tumor or other pathology, and the treatment centered on rehabilitation to help translate compensation strategies in areas of cognitive weakness using the preserved cognitive strengths to help a person adapt and adjust and improve in areas so that they could return to functioning in their life.
Okay, and so in that course of training, there are also testing procedures that you've been trained as a doctor to test for deficits or functioning of the brain that psychologists in this field learn.
Yes, and there's a divide in the practice of psychology in clinical. If you think about clinical psychology broadly, it's like a big umbrella. And one component of clinical psychology is the specialty of neuropsychology. I'm not a neuropsychologist, but my training and experience allow me to conduct a range of assessments that can help identify broad cognitive strengths and weaknesses. It's common for psychologists, clinical psychologists like me, to conduct intelligence testing Some people have additional skills for achievement and academic testing. They might head into schools and help in school psychology. And part of looking at a person's mental status includes understanding some basics about their cognitive skills like memory and concentration and problem solving and judgment and aspects of decision making and insight, which are cognitive and they overlap with neuropsychology.
Okay, let me stop you there. 'Cause
Sure.
That's a lot of information. This is just to qualify you. Now, you have been qualified as an expert hundreds, if not thousands of times before, probably. Is that fair to say?
Surely hundreds.
Okay. Additionally, as a psychologist and as a doctor, you are qualified to testify about the effects of depression on a person,
Yes.
especially if you do a history with them.
Yes.
You're qualified to testify about mental health observations of somebody, a patient that you see,
Yes.
and you've testified about things along those natures in many, many cases in Texas courts.
Yes.
And specifically in regards to testing for brain injuries, that's part of your experience and practice.
Yes.
And part of your training, and so you're qualified to testify those things that you've talked about, correct?
I believe I am. Yes.
All right, I'll pass it.
You may proceed.
Hello, Dr. Dumas.
Hello.
We've never met before, correct?
I don't believe we have. No, ma'am.
Sure. My name's Melissa Allen. I have some questions for you. You said that you are not a neuropsychologist, but you can conduct assessments that can identify the strengths and weaknesses in a person's brain or their mental cognition. Is that fair?
Yes, I think generally that's fair.
And I may use the wrong terminology. But assessing whether or not someone's brain is having trouble functioning is not the same thing as assessing why someone's brain is having trouble functioning. And that's outside the purview of a psychologist, correct?
Well, I think there's two questions that you're asking. For the first, I'd say yes. And for the second, I would tend to disagree. We know a lot about the brain, and we sure don't know everything about the brain.
Okay. You're not a neuropsychologist, though, correct?
Correct?
You're not a neurosurgeon.
Correct.
Okay. And your training that you discussed when you said that you were in a brain injury rehab center, that was an internship in the 90s?
So it was part of my work while I was in my postdoctoral year, and I got my supervision license at that center.
Okay, and that was in the 90s.
Yes, ma'am, late 19.
Okay. And the 3.5 years that you worked in the brain injury rehab center, that was under the supervision of someone who was an actual neuropsychologist or neurosurgeon?
Neuropsychologist, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what time frame was that?
I worked there between like 1995, 96 to 98.
Okay. And then after your time working in this brain injury field, I guess, in the 90s, did you move on to a different study of psychology? So
at that time, I took work at what was the Vernon State Hospital, and I worked with justice-involved patients, some who were referred by courts to restore competency to stand trial, and others who had been found not guilty by reason of insanity.
Okay, and that's been the primary purpose or the primary field that you have worked in since you took that job at Vernon State Hospital, is assessing insanity or competency issues, correct?
That's correct.
And that's not involving brain injuries, correct?
Well, lots of people I see have had some kind of neurocognitive insult. A lot of justice-involved people have had head injuries. Some have had toxic exposure from drug use, and others have developed Alzheimer's and find themselves justice involved. And so, in the field I'm in, I take all comers, and some of them have no mental illness. Some have severe mental illness without any significant neurocognitive involvement. In others, the case is almost exclusively neurocognitive.
Okay. But I guess my understanding, and you're here to correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding of psychologists is that you're trained in assessing mental function, not assessing the reason for the failures of the mental function or the reason for the problems of the mental function. That is a medical doctor, a DO, a neuropsychologist, a neurosurgeon.
So I would disagree with you. A neuropsychologist, for example, is not a medical doctor. They would be a psychologist with specialty qualifications to take a variety of test results and parse the results to more specifically maybe localize the area of the brain involved and to look at the what would be called ecological validity of the test findings against a person's everyday living to help inform treatment to improve a person's functioning in those kinds of areas. We know a lot about the areas of the brain and how they influence certain things like memory or executive functioning or language processing. So there's a lot that we know, and psychology can help with understanding, and neuropsychology can be more specific with understanding those brain behavior relationships.
And you said you've been qualified as an expert hundreds of times, but that was in sanity and competency evaluations, correct?
Yes, ma'am, largely.
Have you ever been qualified as an expert in assessing a traumatic brain injury or a physical medical brain injury as a explanation for mental health issues?
I don't know how to answer that. Again, so much of my work involves, in every case that I do, in every case, I consider cognitive function. I consider things like memory. In every case that I do, I consider attention.
Sorry. Do you need cough drops, water?
So in every case, I consider cognitive function, but I can't look back and recall any one case where I was called to focus specifically on neurocognitive factors.
I guess I'm going more towards structural. If we're talking about physical brain injury, a TBI, a frontal lobe injury, some kind of physical injury, those diagnoses are reserved for the medical doctors, correct?
I would disagree. A neuropsychologist can render a diagnostic.
But you're not a neuropsychologist,
That's correct.
so you can't render that kind of an opinion.
So I think my qualifications and, mine is to function within a standard of practice. The psychologist would rely on the diagnostic and statistical manual to establish, for example, whether someone might have what's called a neurocognitive disorder in the DSM. Yep. So that's
saying why they have that neurocognitive.
I would agree with you. That's correct. That's correct. Okay. Sorry.
Say why somebody has a neurocognitive.
So I would agree with you that you're talking about cause, and I would tend to agree.
Nothing.
Yes. So what level of expertise or what are you offering his testimony for?
Judge, I'm offering his testimony for his medical history, his evaluation, the testing he did. There is testing that he's absolutely qualified for that tests cognitive functioning, and there's some particular testing that he has observations about with Mr. Prado that are significant toward whether there's a deficit that's unusual that could be related to a traumatic brain injury. He has a history of traumatic brain injury in his medical history. He's going to I'm going to ask him to testify about depression and the facts and circumstances of how that can affect somebody's behavior or decision making. And so on that level, I think he's clearly qualified to test to that. He's trained in all of those things I'm going to ask him about. He has experience in all of those things I'm going to ask him about. And again, he's been qualified as an expert hundreds of times in Texas. And so I don't think there's any issue with question whether he's qualified to do all the things. The things he's done with Jesse, he's trained to do, and he has done with other people in his practice.
All right, State.
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Duman, while I don't doubt his qualifications as far as discussing what mental health issues he may see present in the defendant, what mental functional deficits he sees present in the defendant, I think he's qualified to assess that. I don't think that he is qualified, and I think he agreed to give an opinion as to this jury as to why that happened, whether it's from a traumatic brain injury, a hit on the back of the head, a frontal lobe injury, the defense counsel mentioned in an opening statement. He has stated he is not that kind of a doctor. He's not qualified to give an opinion as to the causation. He can talk about what he sees as far as his appearance and any functional issues that he may have, but not why they exist. I think that is outside of the realm of his expertise. He has been qualified lots and lots of times as an expert, but as he said, never in that field, in assessing that the causation. He's been qualified as an expert in competency evaluations and sanity evaluations, and that is not why we're here. So that expertise and the fact that he's been qualified 100 times for that reason is not relevant to his qualifications for this particular hearing. Additionally, what he said about his training and experience in brain injuries was 30 years ago. The majority of his career, his most relevant, most present, most recent experience has been sanity and competency, not in assessing brain injuries. So we don't think he's qualified to give an opinion to that extent.
All right. It'll be overruled. He'll be allowed to testify. Is there anything else? All right. Is this going to be your first witness or second witness? All right. Rule has been invoked. You're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone until this trial has concluded.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
All right. Let's bring the jurors in. Mr. Bunk, were you here for something?
No.
Okay. Cindy, are you going to be okay over there?
It just hit me and I couldn't.
Yes, we're ready. All right, everyone, please be seated. Defense, call your next witness.
Madison Prado.
All right, if you'll place that gray microphone somewhere on your sweater for me, please. Can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you can lower your hand. Make sure you keep your voice up so everyone can hear. If you'll state your name for the record.
My name is Madison Prado.
All right, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, Madison. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Are you nervous about today?
Yes.
You haven't testified before?
No.
Okay. How are you related to Jesse Prado?
I'm his daughter.
And how old are you, Madison?
I'm 20.
Are you currently in school?
Yes.
Where are you in school?
I'm enrolled at the University of the Incarnate Word.
And what are you studying there?
I'm studying nursing.
Okay. I have some questions for you. And you know why we're here today, right?
Yes.
You know your father has pled guilty to assaulting 2 officers with a firearm, and this whole trial has been about what's the appropriate punishment for him. You know that, right?
Yes.
Okay, I want to ask you some questions about your dad. Like, what are your first memories of him, you know, as a father to you? Like, where does it start with you?
My dad has always been a hard worker, and he always took care of us the best that he could with such little that he had.
Now, what's the first job you remember him having? Because I mean, he was working before you were born, right?
Yes.
You know about some of that history, but like, where was he working when you first can remember him coming home from work?
Probably Midway Towing Company.
And what do you remember about his job as a tow truck driver?
Oh man, he would always come home in sweaty, oily clothes from the cars.
Would you all ask him questions about his day, or figure out how he got so dirty, or that kind of like a process for a kid when that's your dad's job?
Not really. I feel like every time he came home, it was always just like a "Daddy, you're home," kind of jump in his arms type of thing.
Um, so I guess during those days, your 2 little sisters weren't born yet, right?
That is correct.
Um, your relationship with your father, how would you describe it as a young girl, like prior to your sisters being born?
My dad was and is still my best friend.
Okay, well, what do you mean by that? Can you explain to the jury like why you feel that way, or
I mean, me and my dad, we always did everything together, whether it be, going to the park. Um, every now and then we would go fishing. Um, he would always cook anything that I wanted for dinner, even if it was just a sandwich or some ramen.
is he the kind of father that would always make sure he's doing fun things with you when he wasn't working?
Always.
What was the family life like? Um, where were y'all living when he was a tow truck driver and you first started having memories of him?
We lived in a trailer house.
And where was that? Is that San Antonio?
Yes.
What part of town was that in?
It was on the northeast side.
All right. And so, I mean, how would you describe your young girl years when you lived with your mom and your dad in the trailer? What was life like for you then?
I mean, I had my own room. Every time I wanted something, my parents would make it happen. So I had a lot of toys. So I feel like I had a really good childhood.
Was the household a loving household?
Yes.
Mom and dad love each other, and were you just happy with a happy family at those times?
Yes.
Um, how would you describe your parents' relationship? I guess up through your early teenage years. How are they as a couple? From your perspective, as a child who lived in the house.
As a child, I always thought the relationship was perfect, and even going into my teenage years, I felt like it was pretty good. I mean, I never really knew like what a relationship should look like, and I feel like they made a prime example of one.
All right, now, what other jobs did your father have up as you got towards your teenage years?
Uh, Whenever he was a tow truck driver, at the time he was in and out of the oil field. He was a derrick man, so he worked at the very top. And after he finally just decided to stop with the oil field, he went to Roadrunner Towing. And then from Roadrunner Towing, he went to Rental One. And from Rental One, he went to Mondelez International delivering cookies.
And like that last job, that cookie one, it's not just like delivering baked cookie. That was with like a commercial vehicle.
Yes, he was a CDL driver.
Do you remember when he got his CDL? What was that like in the family?
Whenever he got his CDL, we were still living in the trailer house. So I remember the day that he got his CDL license, he was sitting on the couch going through his emails, and I want to say my mom was cooking because it was her day to cook. And whenever he just like screamed out, I got my CDL, my mom just started, jumping up and down, like yes, like we're gonna do this, we're gonna get the house of our dreams, and she just jumped into his arms and they were both crying.
So I guess the importance of the CDL then was that, I mean, that was going to be a big pay increase for him, being
Absolutely.
able to drive commercial vehicles for bigger companies. Was that what the excitement about, like, I mean, that was the point of why everybody was so happy, because it was going to give him a different opportunity with potentially much greater income.
Yes.
So when he got that job, I mean, is that what happened? Is that what kind of enabled y'all to be able to buy the house that was on Alta Puerto?
Correct.
Do you remember how old you were when y'all moved into that neighborhood?
I was 13, 14 years old.
And when did your sister start coming around? Much older are you than that?
My middle sister, I'm 9 years older than her. I was 9 when she.
So she was around when y'all moved in, and your little sister, when was she born in relation to you?
Malin, sorry. I think she was born in 18. So I would have been 12, 13.
So was it the three of y'all that were moving into the bigger house and the much nicer neighborhood?
Yes.
Okay, so now I want to ask you about what your father was like as a person during this time.
Okay.
There's been testimony that your dad was pretty outgoing. Do you have information about him being unusually friendly to people in the world? Like let me give you an example. Like, I mean, there's stories about him at the supermarket.
Oh, yes.
Like, when you describe his friendliness to people, what do you think the jurors should know about what he was like out in the real world?
He was the type of person where if we were driving somewhere, going somewhere, and you were stopped on the side of the road having car troubles, and he passed you, he was going to take the U-turn, the next U-turn, and turn around and help you fix your car so you can get wherever you're going safely and not stranded on the side of the road.
That's something you saw him do on many occasions.
Many times.
What about meeting people, like strangers? Would
Mhm.
you start conversations with strangers in a way that you tend not to?
Yeah, I don't tend to do that very often, but every time I was with my dad, it was always, oh, how's your day going? Or, like, I prefer this brand over this brand if we were in a store. He would always talk to you. If you were having a bad day, even a simple smile for him could go a long way. Just brighten up your day.
Now, I know you told the jury about some of his oil field days. I guess you were around when you knew that he was one of the guys who worked at the top of the derricks, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's admittedly one of the more dangerous positions for an oil worker, right?
Very.
And you can be 100 feet in the air on just the metal scaffolding,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no protection if you fall. I mean, they chain themselves in, right? They
Correct.
connect to the wire, but it's a dangerous position.
Absolutely.
Did your father get to the point where he was a trainer for people?
Yes.
Um, and I guess you have personal information, like you've seen some of the people he's trained, and you've seen the way they've reacted to him, right?
Yes.
What can you say to the jury about people that you saw him train that they might want to know about or need to know about if they want to understand?
The people that my dad trained when he was in the oil field, he would train ex-military vets. He would train people who were just trying to get on their feet, people who had just gotten out of jail, prison, things like that, out of hard situations such as that. He would train them to be better people and a hard work.
Was there one specific example of a guy he trained and he was messing with the derrick up in I guess the piping that goes into the ground? That's what they do when they're up there.
Yes.
Do you remember that made you proud or made you think a lot of your dad?
Yes. There's a video of this guy that he was training. And my dad asked him, "What do you want to be whenever you grow up?" And he says, "I want to be like Jesse Prado." And my dad says, "Show me." And in the video, it's him throwing the pipe up on the derricks. And he just says, like, "That's how we do it over here, Jesse Prado style."
Now, if we're going to talk about his character outside of his friendliness, did your dad ever get into trouble
No,
prior to this case?
no,
Uh, did he ever come close to getting into trouble?
no,
Did you ever see him get mean or ugly with anybody in your life?
no,
Anybody?
no.
So I know people have said this case is so out of character. How do you feel about that? I mean, because are there troublemakers in the family or people? Have you met people that you're a little bit more worried about because they can get themselves in trouble? Have you met people like that?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Well, specifically about your father, you've heard that he was helpful. People have mentioned that he was generous. Now, your dad was never a rich man, right? I mean, he was
No.
always a blue collar worker, worked really hard for what he got, right?
Correct.
But was he generous anyway?
Yes.
There are examples of that 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 kind of show what kind of person he is.
I mean, anytime somebody would ask, like, "Hey, do you have a simple $20 I can borrow?" My dad was the type of person to always give extra. So, like, if you needed $20, he'd hand over a 50 or, 40 if he had it. Anything you needed, he would try and double it. And he would never ask for anything in return.
He had helped get a friend a car too, didn't he? He needed transportation, so Jesse facilitated get the car for one of his friends. Remember that?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. Now, how was he with your mom growing up in your household? How did he treat your mother since you can remember up until we get to the point of when all this bad stuff started happening?
My mom, I feel like, was treated like a queen, like the queen she is. My dad always did what he could for her as well. Anything, it was kind of like me, anything that she wanted, she would get.
So, okay, so now I want to talk about a little bit of the harder stuff. There's been a lot of testimony about Noel or Weddle unexpectedly passing when he was 49 years old. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Was that very difficult on the family in general?
Very.
How specifically hard was it on your dad?
It was very hard on my dad. At the time that my Tío Weddle did pass away, we were getting ready for my quinceañera, my birthday party, basically my sweet 16, but 15. And my family, we were going through that very hard loss. And on top of that, I had a party going on. So I feel like after my tío did pass away, my dad realized like he kind of lost his father figure. So it was just very hard on everybody in the family.
Now what was the time frame between that and then when something happened in your parents' marriage where there was, I mean, the affair, and you know about that, right?
Yes.
Your mother stepped out of the marriage. What was the time frame compared to your uncle's passing and when that became an issue in your parents' marriage?
I would say a little over a year, maybe, if not two.
So if were you able to form any opinions on just how your uncle's passing was affecting your father, I guess, during that year before the next big problem came up?
Yes.
What kind of changes that you notice in him that you could tell that, you know, he wasn't his normal self?
I mean, my dad was always a very hard worker, but I feel like after my tío did pass away, he just put his working cap on and just went to work and did his best every day. That was the type of man that my dad was. He would kind of bury his feelings in work, try to keep his mind busy and off of everything else.
Now, was your dad the kind of guy to ask for help for himself or go to the doctor, or I mean, or was he just kind of the tough it out kind of guy?
More so of the tough it out kind of guy. He's kind of like the I got myself type of guy. He never asked for help ever.
Were you able to tell during those points that, you know, he was definitely feeling something significant that you'd never seen before?
At the time, I was 15 or so, so I never really thought much of it. But looking back, I feel like yes, like I should have seen it back then.
Uh, Now, did your parents' marriage start changing visibly for you when the affair got